The summer of 1665 proved to be the hottest on record. The Thames shrank between its banks, revealing mud flats that scorched under the sun. In the tight streets of St. Giles in the Fields, right beyond London's old walls, a woman called Margaret Pontius became sick. She got a fever. Then a fierce, throbbing headache hit. Soon after, a tender lump formed in her armpit. Her husband summoned a searcher of the dead, an older woman compensated with mere pennies by the parish to inspect corpses. The searcher touched the bubo with her thumb, sensed its warmth, and realized the truth. Margaret Pontius passed away on April 12. The parish clerk noted plague in his record. That lone word altered everything, for once the plague invaded a home in 17th-century London, that home turned into a grave. Officials hammered the door closed from outside, marked a red cross over the frame, and inscribed the plea, "Lord, have mercy upon us." Margaret's husband and kids were confined inside with her body for 40 days. A watchman kept vigil outside to stop any breakouts. This was the rule. This was London's method to combat the plague. By September, 7,000 souls were perishing weekly. To grasp London's losses, you need to picture what it once was. The London of 1665 wasn't the industrial giant of future eras, yet it pulsed as the core of England's seafaring empire. Almost 500,000 residents squeezed into an area the Romans would know well. A fortified city scarcely 2 miles wide, encircled by expanding suburbs known as the Liberties. The waterfront buzzed with disorder. Thames Street bordered the water, packed with storehouses full of pitch, tar, brandy, and oil. The wharves reeked of fish, tar, and decaying seaweed. Vessels docked daily from Hamburg, Amsterdam, and the Levant. Their cargoes brimmed with spices, silk, and tidings from afar. Stevedores unloaded goods while watermen ferried passengers across the river in wherries, hurling curses at one another in a dialect unique to the Thames. The lanes were slim, designed that way. Upper floors of wooden-framed homes extended over the paths, forming dim passages where sunlight never touched the cobblestones. Open gutters called kennels flowed down each street's middle, channeling animal refuse, kitchen scraps, and chamber pot contents toward the river. The odor was overpowering. Country visitors clutched handkerchiefs doused in vinegar to their noses. But London shone with splendor too. The newly reinstated King Charles II ruled from Whitehall Palace. The massive Gothic form of St. Paul's Cathedral loomed over the horizon, despite its spire being hit by lightning years before. In Cheapside, goldsmiths showcased items in shops with costly glass windows. Booksellers gathered near St. Paul's churchyard, offering Bibles to rebellious tracts. Coffee houses sprang up, buzzing with traders debating ships and sugar rates. Society was layered with harsh accuracy. Rich merchants dwelled in stone homes close to the Royal Exchange. Craftsmen like weavers, tailors, and shoemakers filled the mid-levels, residing above their shops in the maze of streets by Cripplegate and Aldersgate. Beneath them came the workers, street vendors, coal carriers, and water bearers. And lower still, the utterly destitute, jammed into tenements in the Liberties where whole families crammed into one room. The city echoed with noise. Church bells chimed the hours. Street hawkers proclaimed wares for sale. Fresh mackerel, pot pies, milk from the cow, the clang of blacksmiths, the sawing of carpenters, the clatter of carts on stone. London was noisy, packed, grimy, and vibrant. Then the warmth arrived, and the rats started dying. The plague didn't declare itself boldly. It slunk through the western Liberties in April and May, claiming a few lives here, a household there. The bills of mortality, weekly death tallies assembled by parish clerks, listed modest figures initially. 9 plague deaths in May's first week, 14 in the next. The affluent barely noticed. Plague targeted the poor. All knew it ravaged the jammed tenements, the shadowy alleys, spots decent folk avoided. But the counts climbed. 28 deaths in early June, 43 the following week. Abruptly, it wasn't limited to St. Giles. The contagion shifted east, leaping parishes like flames through parched wood. By June's close, the bills tallied over 200 plague fatalities. That's when the flight started. King Charles II departed London on July 27, shifting his court to Hampton Court and later Oxford. Nobles followed, boarding up townhouses and retreating to rural manors. Then merchants, lawyers, physicians, the College of Physicians, the city's top medical experts, deserted London nearly entirely. Of 79 licensed doctors, just 3 stayed. For the wealthy, getaway was feasible. But a wagon seat out of London cost 5 shillings, exceeding a labourer's weekly pay. And even with the fare, rural areas were unwelcoming. Villages stationed armed guards on roads, repelling Londoners with violence threats. You required a health certificate from your parish, and parishes halted them. As deaths surged, the poor were stuck. They saw the rich escape and realized they'd been forsaken. Courts shut. Parliament moved to Oxford. Theatres locked up. Systems of governance, trade, and law halted. What lingered was a bare-bones setup, the Lord Mayor, some aldermen, and parish staff enforcing the horrors ahead. By late July, London was unrecognizable. Grass sprouted in streets near Whitehall Palace. The Thames lacked boats. The Navy steered ships clear of the infected city. The endless din of city life yielded to a heavy, sorrowful quiet, interrupted only by bell tolls. Officials imposed strict plague regulations rooted in harsh reasoning: quarantine the ill to protect the well. When plague hit a home, it was sealed. All inside, sick and sound, were trapped for 40 days. A watchman guarded the door around the clock, armed with a halberd. He delivered food and water, relayed notes, and noted deaths. He also blocked escapes. The mental terror of this rule defies description. Families were jailed in sweltering, tight tenements amid the hottest summer ever. They coexisted with dying kin, then rotting bodies that stayed until the dead cart arrived. The stench was intolerable, spoiling food, decaying corpses, human filth. Windows stayed closed as folks thought night air carried plague. Some attempted flight. They spiked watchmen's drinks with brandy or wine. They bribed with remaining valuables. They smashed through plaster and laths in walls, dashing through neighbors' yards at night. Samuel Pepys, the naval official whose journal gives our sharpest view of the plague year, noted women's and children's screams from sealed homes, a noise so common it broke the toughest spirits. Quarantine enforcement depended on a dark chain of parish rolls. Searchers of the dead, often impoverished old women, were employed to check bodies and pinpoint death causes. They were infamously untrustworthy. Many couldn't read. Most lacked medical knowledge. Families paid them off to list deaths as spotted fever or consumption, dodging the 40-day lock. The searchers frequently caught the illness and perished soon after. Streets turned into zones of evasion. Folk strolled lane centers to dodge walls where the sick might rest. They skipped handshakes. They ceased visits altogether. Everyday urban politeness, greetings, chats, mere nods to others' presence, vanished. On meeting in streets, people averted faces and rushed by. The city's sensory world shifted. Bells dominated sounds, their endless dull ringing signaling burials. By August, deaths were so many that bells pealed constantly. Officials eventually forbade them, worried about frenzy. Smoke ruled smells. Bonfires blazed at corners, fed by pitch and sulfur, meant to purify tainted air. People clutched herb posies, rosemary, rue, wormwood, to noses. Samuel Pepys got rolled tobacco to chew, betting it fended off contagion. Knights brought dead carts. They rolled streets with torches, drivers yelling, "Bring out your dead." Corpses stacked up, often 40 or 50 per load, carted to outer burial sites. Massive plague pits at Moorfield stretched 40 feet long, 20 wide, sunk deep in London clay. Bodies layered, dusted lightly with lime and dirt. Full pits led to new ones nearby. By early September, bills logged over 7,000 weekly deaths. Historians today think the real count topped 10,000. Parish clerks lagged. Deaths outpaced counts, burials. In some areas, dead outnumbered living. Without doctors, Londoners sought any hope. Walls bore ads for wonder cures. Infallible preventive pills cost 6p. Sovereign cordials versus air corruption vowed family safety. Most were worthless. Some poisonous. The cure scene was a desperate freak show. Fake docs peddled mixes of garlic, vinegar, viper meat. Theriac, an old fix, was pricey for rich only. Poor had budget choices, hellebore for sweat, vomit, purge. One mineral mix was so strong, it cured by burying takers peacefully. Oddest cures used sympathetic magic. Folks donned dried toad amulets on necks or armpits, thinking toads pulled poison. Others pressed warm chickens or pigeons to buboes, figuring heat extracted infection. Doctors, lacking better, backed these. A few healers remained. William Boghurst, St. Giles' apothecary, saw 40 to 60 patients daily all summer. He toiled non-stop, entering sealed homes, lancing buboes, giving his potions. In his work Loimographia, he noted starkly, plague started in humble poor homes, but spared none, rich, poor, good, bad, young, old. Boghurst lived, unexplained. Faith explained what medicine couldn't. Sans germ theory, plague seemed God's verdict. Preachers boomed from pulpits, God punished London's vices. Monarchy's return, courts' looseness, theatres, alehouses, brothels invited wrath. Solomon Eccles, a Quaker who'd torched his instruments as vain sin, voiced end times woe. He roamed streets near naked in a loincloth, balancing a pan of coals and sulphur on his head, yelling, "Repent! Repent!" He raved at Eleanor Cross and Cheapside, foretelling a vast fire consuming the city. To 1,665 scared masses, his words rang true. Society frayed. Kin ditched dying family. Servants bolted bosses. Community ties, frayed by dread and seclusion, snapped. Pepys' diary marked a weird mental dulling. By August, he barely reacted to street corpses. This toughening was vital. Survival demanded emotional shutdown, ignoring loss scale. Yet kindness flickered. Officials who could flee stayed. Watchmen held posts despite peril. Clergy consoled sick, giving last rites when others shunned homes. Artisan John New, Cripplegate weaver, remained with dying kids though he could escape. He died 3 days later, tied to his craft, tools, self. September hit hardest. Heat lingered into fall. Bills showed unthinkable tolls, 7,000 one week, 8,000 next. In Stepney Parish, 92% deaths from plague. In St. Giles, whole streets emptied, residents dead or gone. Economy crashed fully. Trade to London stopped. Nations quarantined English vessels. Markets shut. Bakeries idled. Second-hand clothes trade, key to city economy, banned, as fabric carried plague. Craftsmen needing daily pay lost jobs, earnings. Records, 84% in sealed homes were chargeable, 2 broke for self-support, reliant on scant parish aid. Quarantine costs burdened the poorest. Watchmen got slim pay. Searchers toiled for pennies, often dying quick. Parish funds drained. London's bishop said thousands of poor craftsmen neared starvation. Locked folks chose plague's slow death or hungers. Kids bore worst. Families in tenements watched offspring ail, helpless. A child's bubo meant doom. Parents hoped swelling suppurated and burst, freeing poison. Often, tokens, dark hemorrhage spots, meant end. Kids died in arms, parents amid kids' bodies. By late September, bills dipped, 8,000 deaths, then 7,000, then 6,000. No mercy halted plague, autumn did. Chill killed transmitting fleas. Survivors gained immunity. Plague ravaged vulnerable, exhausted easy prey. But London transformed. Streets depopulated. Trades vanished with dead practitioners. Families wiped out. Generations-old names ceased. Mental scar deep, lasting. By November, King returned. Life restarted shyly. Shops unlocked. Markets revived. But post-plague city differed from pre. Official toll, 68,596. Modern studies peg over 100,000, nearly 20% population. Parishes ravaged. Liberties, hardest hit, needed decades to heal. Survivors met changed economy. Labor dearth empowered remnants. Wages climbed. Lords, needing tilled land, gave better deals. Pre-plague stiff hierarchies cracked. Laborers gained leverage first in ages. But before full rebound, disaster struck. September 2, 1666, fire sparked in Pudding Lane Bakery. Easterly gales fanned it through timber homes and warehouses of flammables. Lord Mayor Thomas Bloodworth shrugged initially, claiming a woman could extinguish it. Too late when he saw peril. Fire raged 5 days, razing 13,000 homes, 87 churches. Myth says Great Fire ended plague by torching filthy homes, killing rats. Evidence debunks, plague waned pre-fire. Worst parishes, Whitechapel, Southwark, Clerkenwell, unscorched. Fire hit just quarter of London. Plagues fade from nature, cold, immunity, rat shifts. Fire forced rebuild. Parliament 1667, 1670 Rebuilding Acts ordered shifts. New builds, brick or stone. Thatch roofs outlawed. Jutting upper stories, those gloomy medieval lanes, banned. Streets broadened for air, fire block. Changes, fire-driven not health, unexpectedly helped, brick cut rat nests. Less crowding slowed disease. Miasma theory wrong, but London's remake barred plague 1665 grip. Mental wounds outlasted physical. Survivors bore locked homes, bells, dead streets in mind. Art fixated on death. Diarist Samuel Pepys, thriving via smart admin in plague year, always recalled night carts past his window. 1665's Great Plague, Britain's last big bubonic hit. London faced cholera, typhoid, flu later. None matched that summer's inescapable horror. Rebuilt city from ash and plague, tougher, practical, less faith in divine or old ways. Red crosses faded from doors. Plague pits buried, forgotten, though digs uncover them now. Memory lingers of summer London teetered on brink, civilization faltered, ordinary folk chose duty or survival. That shaped risen city, vowing 1665 never repeats.